Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, Creative Chaos, and this project was chaos. I would love to say that it turned out beautifully, but I made a big boo-boo, everybody. So at the time that I started this painting, it was before my son was about to graduate from boot camp, from basic training. And so part one went beautifully. I was able to get the painting done and there were no problems with it. Everything was running smoothly. And then, we got excited about our trip and I made a big mistake. I didn't thoroughly close the lids on a bunch of the paints. I just got too excited about the trip and I didn't think about the fact that during the week that we'd be gone, the paints would dry out. And so I came back to a whole bunch of gummy. If you've ever dealt with acrylic paints, you know how they just kind of get kind of rubbery and gummy. And I was heartbroken. I didn't give up on the painting, however. I wanted to at least try to salvage it, and so I used so much paint thinner trying to make it work. And it did to an extent. I was able to revive some of the paints, but especially with some of the yellows, it was just so thin that you could see the number behind it. So unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And I was able to finish the painting. Will I keep the painting? Probably not, because like I said, if you look, you don't even have to look closely and you can see the numbers shining through, but I don't have enough acrylic paints and the knowledge to be able to recreate and color match to make it work. So I was so sad that it happened that way. This sunflower painting was supposed to be just for me, because I love sunflowers so much. So if you if you can feel for me, see if there's a sunflower or a yellow flower or something you can stick down in the comments just to say, we got you, Laurie. We know your pain. So you'll see it finished through to the end, and it looks good, like I said, on the paper. As long as you don't look too closely, you can't see the numbers shining through. But anyways, I wanted to talk today about a series that I have loved since I was a kid. Do you guys remember the show Reading Rainbow? There was one book that they used to take books and they would read a section of it and somebody would recreate what you were seeing in art, and it was just so cool. And there was one particular book that I was so mad at myself that I didn't get the name of it, because as he was reading the book and making that picture come to life, I was falling in love with it, but he didn't say the name of the book again, and so I never knew what it was. Well, go a few years into the future, my mom has this book called Greenwich, and I loved the book, and found out it was part of a series of 5 books. And so as I got older, I picked up the series, and to my absolute delight, book number 2 in the series was the book that they had brought to life for me. And so I wanted to read the little section. Oh, see, now I'm unprepared and I'm not ready with the pages. But it's about it's a series by Susan Cooper, and it was written in the 60s and 70s. But it involves it's just that whole idea of good versus evil, the light and the dark, and the battle against humanity, or not against humanity, but for humanity, to be able to take them and either make them good or evil. And then it also interweaves the tale of King Arthur, through the series. And it's just so beautifully done, and it's just so much fun. And so what I wanted to do, and I know that You're not supposed to like full on read books that are less than 100 years old, but I am just going to read a certain section. Now, the first book, Over Sea Under Stone, it takes place with three children, Simon, Jane, and Barney, and they actually find a grail that supposedly Arthur used at the time. And they have this man that's just a huge friend of the family. They call him their great uncle Mary. His name is Merriman Lyon, and he is the one figure that interweaves through the entire series. He is the figure that carries through and connects everybody together. In the second book, this all takes place in Britain. And yes, I am going to inflict you with my really awful British accent, but you just have to read it with a British accent. It's just necessary. And that's how it happens in my head anyways when I read these books. And so this one, you have the main character is Will. Will is turning 11 years old on Midsummer's Eve, or Midsummer's Day, I should say, and something magical happens. He is awoken to a world where he is more than just a boy. He is considered one of the quote-unquote old ones, the fighters for the light. And this is the day where these powers, this gift within him begins. And of course, because he is just newly awakened to these powers, the powers of evil try to take him. And so he has awoken. He is delighted because there's snow on the ground, but there's something strange going on in the world. It's not his world that he wakes up to, but rather steps back in time. And so he is turning onto a road that's called Huntercombe Lane, and he is listening for, or he hears a sound in the distance. So here I am with my really bad British accent. He stood still. The sound came again through the muffling trees, a rhythmical off-key tapping like a hammer striking metal. It came in short, irregular bursts, as though someone were hammering nails. As he stood listening, the world around him seemed to brighten a little. The woods seemed less dense, the snow glittered, and when he looked upward, the strip of sky over Huntercombe Lane was a clear blue. He realized that the sun had risen at last out of the sullen bank of grey cloud. He trudged on towards the sound of hammering and soon came to a clearing. There was no village of Huntercombe any more, only this. All his senses sprang to life at once under a shower of unexpected sounds, sights, smells. He saw 2 or 3 low stone buildings thick-roofed with snow. He saw blue wood smoke rising and smelt it too, and smelt at the same time a voluptuous scent of new-baked bread that brought the water springing into his mouth. He saw that the nearest of the 3 buildings was 3-walled, open to the track, with a yellow fire burning bright inside like a captive sun. Great showers of sparks were spraying out from an anvil where a man was hammering. Beside the anvil stood a tall black horse, a beautiful gleaming animal. Will had never seen a horse so splendidly midnight in colour, with no white markings anywhere. The horse raised its head and looked full at him, pawed the ground and gave a low whinny. The smith's voice rumbled in protest, and another figure moved out of the shadows behind the horse. Will's breath came faster at the sight of him, and he felt a hollowness in his throat. He did not know why. The man was tall and wore a dark cloak that fell straight like a robe. His hair, which grew low over his neck, shone with a curious reddish tinge. He patted the horse's neck, murmuring in its ear. Then he seemed to sense the cause of its restlessness, and he turned and saw Will. His arms dropped abruptly. He took a step forward and stood there, waiting. The brightness went out of the snow in the sky, and the morning darkened a little, as an extra layer of the distant cloud bank swallowed the sun. Will crossed the road through the snow, his hands thrust deep into his pockets. He did not look at the tall cloaked figure facing him. Instead, he stared resolutely at the other man, bent again now over the anvil, and realized that he knew him. It was one of the men from Dawson's farm, John Smith, old George's son. "Morning, John," he said. The broad-shouldered man in the leather apron glanced up. He frowned briefly, then nodded in welcome. "Hey, Will. You're out early." "It's my birthday," Will said. "A midwinter birthday," said the strange man in the cloak. "Auspicious indeed, and you will be 11 years grown." It was a statement, not a question. Now Will had to look. Bright blue eyes went with the red-brown hair, and the man spoke with a curious accent that was not of the southeast. "That's right," said Will. A woman came out of one of the nearby cottages carrying a basket of small loaves of bread, and with them the new-baked smell that had so tantalized Will before. He sniffed, his stomach reminding him that he had not eaten breakfast. The red-haired man took a loaf, wrenched it apart, and held out half towards him. "Here, you're hungry. Break your breakfast fast with me, young Will." He bit into the remaining half of the loaf, and Will heard the crust crackle invitingly. He reached forward, but as he did so, the smith swung a hot horseshoe out of his fire and clapped it briefly on the hoof clenched between his knees. There was a quick, smoky smell of burning, killing the scent of the new bread. Then the shoe was back in the fire, and the smith peering at the hoof. The black horse stood patient and unmoving, but Will stepped back, dropping his arm. "No, thank you," he said. The man shrugged, tearing wolfishly at his bread, and the woman, her face invisible behind the edge of an enveloping shawl, went away again with her basket. John Smith swung the horseshoe out of the fire to sizzle and steam on a bucket of water. Get on," said the rider irritably, raising his head. "The day grows. How much longer?" "Your iron will not be hurried," said the smith, but he was done hammering the shoe in place now with quick, sure strokes. "Done," he said at last, trimming the hoof with a knife. The red-haired man led his horse round, tightened the girths, and slid upwards, quick as a jumping cat, into his saddle. Towering there, with the folds of his dark robe flowing over the flanks of the black horse, he looked like a statue carved out of night. But the blue eyes were staring compellingly down at Will. "Come up, boy. I'll take you where you want to go. Riding is the only way in snow as thick as this." "No, thank you," Will said. "I am out to find the walker." He heard his own words with amazement. So that's it, he thought. "But now the rider is abroad," the man said, and all in one quick movement he twitched his horse's head round, bent in the saddle, and made a sweeping grab at Will's arm. Will jerked sideways, but he would have been seized if the smith, standing at the open wall of the forge, had not leapt forward and dragged him out of reach. For so broad a man, he moved with astonishing speed. The midnight stallion reared, and the cloaked rider was almost thrown. He shouted in fury, then recovered himself, and sat looking down in a cold contemplation that was more terrible than rage. "That was a foolish move, my friend Smith," he said softly. "We shall not forget." Then he swung the stallion round and rode out in the direction from which Will had come, and the hoofs of his great horse made only a muffled whisper in the snow. Can you see why I loved that so much? It captivated my attention, and I just wanted to read that book. But alas, it just wasn't meant to be, at least not for several years. And so there are 5 books in total. After this one, where Will discovers who he is and what his mission is, and it is to fight against the dark, and they call it The Dark is Rising because it tends to come in waves where it ebbs and flows, and they fight against each other, and then they're both... The battles never won. The battles are won. The war is never over. And I think that's just true of life in general. There's always going to be evil in the world, just as there is always going to be good. But it's the intensity in which we fight against the evil that matters, and that's what this book is about. But like I said, it also takes and interweaves the Arthurian legend, and you actually get to meet Arthur near the end of the book, but he's not a central character in the book. It really does all revolve around the children. So in the next book, Will gets to meet Simon, Jane, and Barney, and at first they don't really take to him. They're not quite sure about him. They feel like he's infringing on their time with their great Uncle Mary. But Jane has a soft heart and tries to involve him when she can. And it's just a fascinating series. I hope that if you can find it at your library, that you'll pick it up and enjoy it every bit as much as I have. I bought the books and pick them up every couple of years to reread them, and I'm rereading The Dark is Rising right now and enjoying it thoroughly. So, in any case, I hope that you have enjoyed my little foray into a book recommendation. If you'd like more book recommendations or, just little readings like this, let me know in the comments. I'd be so happy to I love clean books. The books that I read will all be clean, and maybe that's your thing and maybe it's not, but because of my past, I have to be very careful with the things I read. So the things I read are probably more on a not child, but youth and juvenile level. Some of the books I read are for adults, but again, they're cleaner books. They just make my heart happy. I love to read, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching me finish this painting. It was a labor of love, and it was a labor of heartache. Like I said, you can kind of see in that paint thing right there just how I'm frantically putting in water and paint thinner, just trying desperately to get it to put any kind of pigment down. And so it really was a frustrating time. So will I do another paint by numbers? Oh yeah, I've still got 2 more that I want to pick up, and I'm a glutton for punishment. They have 3 different levels of paintings that you can do, and I always pick the one that requires 12 plus hours, and has just the teeniest, tiniest little places that you have to fill in. And so I've got 2 more I'm going to do, but I think I'm going to switch. I like to do a bigger project at the same time I'm doing littler projects, and so I think I'm going to switch to a diamond painting next. My kids bought me a couple of them for Christmas, and I need to pick one up. I think the first one I'm going to do is a Scooby-Doo one, and then give that to my son, who picked it out for me because he loves Scooby-Doo. He just loves everything Scooby-Doo and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. Yes, he is 23, and he's like me. We just still revel in the things that we loved when we were kids. I don't know if you do, but I know that we do. So I think I'll pick that one up next, and we'll see what next week brings. In any case, I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that the weather is starting to warm up and turn into spring. We had a very rainy and snowy week last week, but this week it's up in the 60s Fahrenheit, and it's actually, we're thinking of having to turn on the swamp cooler and get that going because it's getting so warm in the house. Even with the ceiling fans going, it's getting kind of warm. And so we are very blessed to have, we don't have central air, but we do have what's called a swamp cooler, and so it brings water in through. Anyways, you guys don't really need to know this kind of stuff. That's just silly. Anyways, I did enjoy this project. I did enjoy... Oh, I don't even remember. Sorry, the phone rang, and so I had to stop recording, and so I don't remember exactly what I was talking about beforehand, other than the weather getting warmer. And so I guess that's where I ended. I'm so sorry, you guys. Now that's distracted me, and my brain's all... So today I'm going to cut my son's hair, and he has an appointment with vocational rehab tomorrow. We're going to see about trying to get him a job, and it's kind of hard in this economy. Even though everybody claims they're hiring, it seems like nobody's actually doing the hiring. It's been very frustrating. And my daughter is taking her test tomorrow for her last test for her GED, so we're really excited about that, and hope that she does well. In any case, I will let you all go. Make today a great day. Just find something that just makes it absolutely wonderful, and don't let the dog take over. All right, everybody. You take care, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.